13th, and we are going to do a quick recap on the day. So let me just go into that. So let's go into our focus here. So start with NQ. NQ, pretty sloppy day. A lot of sideways, just back and forth, seek and destroy type vibes here. So if we drop out into like the hourly chart, CPI opens up, right? We run up into potential order block, drive down, thus sell side liquidity. This all happens within like 15 seconds, then immediately runs up. Now, during the, I guess, aftermath of CPI, we took sell side from that CPI low, but on ES we didn't, and on YM we also didn't. Now, if we look at a 4-hour here, you'll see that we were dropping into a 4-hour fair value gap, right? So that's key. So we look in here, we got this 4-hour fair value gap. Let's take note of that. I'll just take everything else off here for now. So do we get a 15-minute setup off this 4-hour fair value gap? So we do, and it's a loser, right? I mean, if you take this in terms of this is a market structure shift, this is a fair value gap, then this would be a losing trade. Now, you'll notice that we had a fair value gap here. It gets closed through, another fair value gap. This becomes a balanced price range, right? And you notice how price is one drawing to that and hovering around that pretty much the entire day. So in my eyes, there wasn't really any clean NQ setups today. You could have said that this fair value gap right there, so we could use this 1-hour fair value gap here that we drop down into. And this is during the later portion of the AM session, so around 10:10, drive down into it. Now, for me, if I was going to look for a trade, let's say as like an order block position, I would have liked to see this close below this low, but nonetheless, very nice respect of that hourly fair value gap. We drive up above here, right? This would be more of a confirmed market structure shift, and I don't know if this is a silver bullet. It's not a silver bullet, but if this was your setup, could have had a small scalp in here, right? But I wasn't trading NQ. I thought it was pretty sloppy in my opinion, right? And it turned out to be sloppy, right? I'm more leaning on the fact that NQ has kind of reached its higher time frame objectives, and now ES is going to be more of like the showstopper here. So let's go into ES. So on ES, we have let's look on the 4-hour, right? Start with the 4-hour. So on the 4-hour, we have this fair value gap right here. And on the contrary, right, we can see that ES actually respects this 4-hour fair value gap. So if you go into the 15-minute here, drive down into it, market structure shift, fair value gap, and it's not anything special at all, right? But it could potentially be the weekly setup, right? This is kind of a 4-hour, 15-minute entry is usually the short-term trading strategy, right? So if this was your entry, let's say this fair value gap, your stop could be below the lowest low or below this order block, right? We close below liquidity here. This is just really manipulation. Look at the candle bodies. This is where your stop would be, right? And you could have came out with maybe a 1.6 on the day if maximum. I mean, in terms of targeting, with how volatile this week has, I guess, the potential to be, I would say we could potentially reach up into 44.50. Now, it's obviously a pretty large target from, where we opened the week up. Where was that? Right, like our weekly opens here, and we pretty much have not traded below it at all. So this consolidation here could mean, and this is obviously just saying calling it both sides, but this could be consolidation. Maybe we manipulate above it and drive down to lower prices this week. Or we're really bullish. We want to continue on from this week open and run up into this mean threshold of this monthly order block. But so that's one setup. In terms of a 5 minute, so like kind of like a day trading setup, this is something I'm a little bit upset that I missed. But if you go in here and you look, you see we had that CPI candle, right, running sell side liquidity, and we get a fair value gap on the hourly chart. So when we trade down into that fair value gap, it's really important to remember what I said earlier in terms of the order block, right? You drive up, trade down into it. Now, these candle bodies contain liquidity, right? And notice we traded below it here. So when this gets closed above, this is now an order block, right? And more so like a rejection block. But your trade nonetheless could have been here. Stops below the low of the order block. And again, you'd have a nice, probably like 2 to 1. Yeah, about 2.5, 2.6, right? And that was entered during the AM session, so you'd probably close it around 11:30. That's in my terms, right? You take this high and probably be done with it. Okay, so when we trade back into that, right, there's no propulsion block, but we trade into it again in the PM session over here. Look at the respect. Look at the candle body respect. I'm not sure if it's respecting the high. No, right? So we get that. There's an interesting setup there later, but let's look in the 15 minute for any scalp setups. So today, you see we have this 15-minute fair value gap here. Why not this one? Well, 9:30 was here, and we drove down right before ahead of 9:30. We were already closed below this, and I was waiting for the next liquidity injection because any overzealous buyers, anybody who was trying to buy up here in the top, on the lower time frame, you'll see they could have gotten stopped out. So we trade down into this fair value gap, 9:30, right? What do you see? Market structure shift, fair value gap entry, stops below candle 1 of the fair value gap, right? Or really, yeah, this is candle 1 of the fair value gap exactly. And you get 3.3. I took this trade and I broke even on it. I was aiming for holding it till the close of the session, so about 11:30. You win, you lose, right? So break even on this trade. Then come down and we take liquidity here, right? Here's your order block. Soup the order block. Market structure shift above this high. Take this fair value gap here, or you can take this fair value gap here, whatever your choice is. Regardless, when you have two fair value gaps, you have to allow your stop to trade up or trade down into that second fair value gap. You see, you get a nice sustained rally here. So I took this trade. You see, we get about a 3 to 1 here. Close it around 11:30. So right about there, right? So I ended up coming out of the day or out of that trade with 2.4 risk to reward. Okay, beautiful. Now I wanted to explain what happened over here with that 5-minute order block. Now technically we're not really using 5-minute order blocks for our targeting, but as you can see here, we have a rejection block on the on the 15 minutes. We have a rejection block. Extend that out in time. Go to the 1 minute. We just tap it. Now, think of time of day, right? We're coming from consolidation. We drive down. Now we're in a consolidation over here, right? Here's your level that you want to see taken for market structure shift. Long up in that fair value gap. Stop below the third or below this order block, right? So let's say about 1 tick below it even, if you're worried. And you get a nice power hour, about 2 to 1 right there, right? If you're aiming for this high, how would you aim for this high? Check this out. Standard deviation of the manipulation leg, right here. No, here, sorry. Yeah. So I was aiming for 3 standard deviations, right? Just right above that high because it was the next standard deviation above that high. Charmingly takes it and consolidates. There's another, you see you have this order block here on the 1 minute, beautifully respected to go in and take higher prices to almost reach up into 3.5 standard deviations or 3.5. Now, if you're using this, I believe that would qualify, yeah. So that's ES. Lots of trading on ES today. Oh, my thing's gonna die. Okay, so we'll go up into hourly again. Let's go into Aussie dollar here. Aussie, wasn't a lot that was happening here. The draw on liquidity, as said in my weekly forecast, was this monthly order block open. So if you look at CPI today, right, we trade down into this imbalance once again, right? You see the low or the high of this fair value gap right there. Trade down into it, drive up, trade up into this monthly order block. That was expected. There was no setup, right? I wouldn't have taken it off of this fair value gap, in my opinion, right? And we did have a nice trade, though, off of that monthly order block, right? Nice intraday trade, market structure shift, fair value gap. And I mean, that's just a monster risk reward trade, but my mind wasn't there. Let's take a look on Euro. Euro was pretty sloppy, right? The ideal setup was down here yesterday, right? Trading up into that daily, or not that daily fair value gap here. Drive down, order block, drive down into it during London and New York. So I missed this move. I was looking to get in off this propulsion block over here, never came. So I just abandoned the idea, and you can see it's pretty consolidated. There's not a lot that's really high probability in here. I didn't want to buy at a premium. Pound. So we have this 4-hour inversion fair value gap, and again, for myself, I was looking to get trading into this 4-hour order block with definitely a higher risk than the trade I took here, but you got to do what you got to do. So at CPI, we'll drop down to a 15-minute. You see at CPI, we trade right up into that, just paint out the line by about 1 pip, not even a pip. See, we get a market structure shift here, fair value gap, drive down into it, consolidate a little bit in it, but we're respecting the low of that fair value gap. As you can see, the bodies are above it. And yeah, took off 50% here at 1-to-1, and my target is above this previous high here, or till the end of the week. You can see in 26 minutes, I mean, if we somehow close below this fair value gap, there's still some potential of respect. I mean, on the 12-hour candle, same thing. There is this implied fair value gap here that could act as resistance, but I mean, we're kind of disrespecting it as of right now. We'll see how the 12-hour candle closes. I'm already break even on that position anyways, so it's fine. And in terms of an hourly chart, was there anything on an hourly chart? So yeah, again, like you have that imbalance here that was traded up into during London. They reference it during CPI, and you could probably get a 5-minute setup too. I elected to go with the 15-minute, which is the short-term setup. So yeah, that's the daily review for today on CPI. Hope you enjoy.